Hi everyone, welcome to the second cooking demonstration that we've done for this year. My name is Melissa Brillhart and I am an instructor here at the University of West Georgia as well as a registered dietitian. And I have the privilege of partnering up with Jason. Jason, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Melissa. I appreciate you having me back. My name is Jason Segal. I'm the executive chef with Dine West at West Georgia University.
Yes, so we are coming together today because the holidays are upon us. We have already passed a major milestone of a holiday being Thanksgiving. Did you have a good one?
That's right, I had a great one. A lot of relaxation and doing a lot of nothing. How about you?
Was food involved?
There was a lot of food.
Lot of food. That is normally what the holidays are about, is food, you know, family, friends, fun, relaxing. That's what it's all about. So our first recipe, I'll let Jason introduce. What are we going to be doing today?
Well, the first thing we're going to be doing today is a lightened up version of a green bean casserole. Green bean casserole, you know, traditionally kind of a heavy comfort food style side that you have usually at Christmas or Thanksgiving that consists, you know, of course, of green beans, either canned, condensed cream of mushroom soup, cheese, fried onions, you know, that come out of a can, or if you're fancy, you know, you fry them yourself and put them on top of as a garnish. So what we're going to do today is kind of serve a lightened up version that is lower in sodium, lower in fat, obviously probably a little lower in cholesterol, you know, if that's something that you're paying attention to. So, you know, and we're also going to be using fresh green beans for this. A lot of times some people will just dump a can out, which is okay. I mean, but
for time's sake.
Yeah, you know, for time's sake, it's fine. You know, it's a more traditional way of doing it, but we're going to use fresh green beans for this and also fresh mushrooms and all that. We're going to make our own sauce instead of dumping it out of a can. So we'll make our own cream of mushroom, I guess, if you will, for this, and it'll be a lot healthier for you. You don't have to feel as bad about eating a lot of it, you know, if you make it at home.
Definitely.
So the first thing we're going to do for this is we're going to start off by blanching the green beans. We already have some snipped and cut in half. You know, you can leave them whole if you want to. To me, they're a little easier to manage if you kind of cut them in half. I have some boiling water here. Whenever you're blanching something, the water needs to be simmering or at a boil. So when you dump it in there, it doesn't lower the temperature of the water too much. And I'm going to add just a little bit of salt to it. Not a lot, because I know this is a low sodium thing, but the salt will add a little bit of flavor to the green beans as we blanch them, okay?
Because I think too, the biggest thing is when we talk about like healthier eating, that sometimes people go, oh, I'm going to modify this recipe, and it just turns out so gross, not enjoyable. And so these recipes, tried and true, are still really good and cut down on some of those not great things.
Exactly. I'm okay with lightening anything up or making it healthier, you know, and there are ways to keep the flavor and stuff in there by using things like shallots or extra seasoning or anything of that nature. So whenever you're blanching something, you're not really cooking it all the way. We're doing these about halfway because we're going to finish them the rest of the way in the oven after we create our sauce and pour them back in our sauce and all that. So blanching is kind of a way to par cook, if you will, vegetables. All right. So now that we've got our green beans blanched, I'm going to go ahead and add a saute pan to our induction cooker here and go ahead and start to get it hot. I'm going to add just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil to the pan to warm up. It'll take about 30 seconds or so to get hot. And then once the oil gets hot, we're going to saute our mushrooms, let those cook down until they kind of start to release some of the juice from inside. And then we're going to add a little bit of all-purpose flour to that to make something that's called a roux. So a roux is basically a half and half mixture of any kind of fat and flour, and that's used to thicken sauces or make soups or gravies or anything like that. So we're going to use that, and then we're going to add a little bit of chicken broth, and we have some milk here, and that'll make the base for our mushroom sauce for our green bean casserole. So our oil's starting to get hot. I have a little bit of shallots here that we've already pre-cooked, so I'm gonna go ahead and add these, and the shallots add a really good flavor to it. If you don't like onion or anything like scallions or anything like that, you can leave these out. It's not a big deal. But since we're taking some of the sodium out, we're gonna add something like this to kind of add a little bit more flavor to it.
And Jason, what's the difference between, like, flavor-wise between a shallot and just like a typical onion?
There's not a whole lot of difference. You know, they're all from the same family, the allium family. So like shallots, scallions, any type of onion. This has a little bit more pungent flavor than like a typical yellow or sweet onion. Okay. So these are good. You know, they're traditionally used in like classic French cooking and stuff. They're not something that you really like will buy a lot at home unless for some reason you have a recipe that calls for it. It's really fancy. So I'm probably not going to use all these mushrooms. I'm just going to add a little bit to it there. And I'm going to do that one there.
So these were pre-sliced just white mushrooms.
Yeah, you can use any kind of mushroom you want, and it's handy if they're already sliced, to save you some time. But you can use any variety of mushroom you want. If you got portobello, cremini, or whatever you can find at the grocery store, any of those will work for this. This is just a cheaper, it's more economical. You don't really have to get too fancy. It still has a really good flavor to it. You can get what you're looking for. So we'll let the shallots kind of mix in there with the mushrooms a little bit.
And of course, mushrooms are a great filler. They're high in moisture content, so they just help fill your belly. They do have really good vitamins and minerals in them. And many times they're used as an alternative to meat. That's not exactly what we were going for with this recipe, but just provides really good filling for that recipe.
Yeah, and I mean, I love mushrooms. If you get them nice and toasty, say if you put some in the oven and kind of brown them up a little bit, they have a really nice, like, earthy, like just natural, like toasty flavor that I really like in a lot of things. So if you notice the mushrooms or anything start to dry out a little bit, you can always add a few more drops of the extra virgin olive oil to it. And our mushrooms are starting to get nice and tender there. You can see they've got a little bit of caramelization on there. They're browning up a little bit. That makes for a nice flavor along with the scallion or the shallots and everything. And it smells really good too.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, they smell great. So, all right, our mushrooms are at a nice consistency there. They're cooked. They're starting to release a little bit of that mushroom juice. We're going to add a little bit of our flour here. And this flour is going to kind of bind with the oil in there, and that's what's going to make the roux. And that ultimately is what's going to give us the body for our gravy that we're going to be making for our green bean casserole here. And you just mix that in there. And if it starts to look a little thick, don't worry. You're going to add some liquid to it, and it is going to thin out and make a nice sauce. You just want to cook that in there and make sure that it absorbs all the fat in that mushroom juice and shallot juice that's in there.
Yeah, and that's too going back to the oils. Again, with extra virgin olive oil, it's a super heart-healthy type of fat. But what Jason had hinted to is when at some point it's too high of a temperature when you're cooking it and it's actually smoking, the properties of it can change. The flavor can change, but also the nutritional makeup.
Now we have our chicken broth here. You can kind of slowly add that in there. You don't have to add it all at one time. And that will go in there. Once your pan's nice and hot, it'll pretty much come to a boil right away.
And you all can see on the screen right now, our recipe is up there. And we also welcome, in the chat, you'll see if you're not able to jot down these ingredients yet, you are welcome to reach out to our Wolf Wellness Lab at that email address. We also, for all of our UWG employees, we will be, if you are not a part yet of our wellness newsletter that goes out every couple weeks, please reach out to that same email address and get your email added to it. For our outside people, just go ahead and email and say you would like the recipe. But we welcome people to be a part of this, whether you are here at UWG or not.
Yeah. All right. So you can see it's starting to thicken up and it's starting to look like a gravy there. Yeah, it's like magic. So we're going to add just a little bit of our milk to it to give it that creamy consistency. Yeah, so at this point, you want to let it simmer for just a second to cook out that raw flour flavor.
Okay.
And at this point, if you want to add any extra seasonings to it, like if you hand me that black pepper there,
yes.
I'm going to put a few shakes of black pepper in there. We'll leave the salt out of it. Me personally, a little black pepper goes a long way, so you don't need a bunch of it in there unless you love black pepper. So I'll put a few turns of black pepper in there. And then you have your mushroom sauce here for your green beans. And at this point, you go ahead and add your green beans back to the pan. This is where it can get a little bit messy, but I'll try to be as clean as I can. I won't try to toss it. Let's just fold that in there. So you fold your green beans into your mushroom sauce. So you have this. You have your greased casserole here. Pour that right in there. All right, so you have the beginning of your green bean casserole there. And what we're going to do next is we're going to make the topping. Traditionally, people would put something like French's fried onions on top or anything like that, and that's good. That's the traditional way to do it, but it's not the lightened up way that we're trying to go for today. So we'll show you a little healthier option for your green bean casserole topping here.
Yes, so for them, for the topping, we are going to use a little bit of olive oil, but that was to go ahead and cook the shallots. The shallots, again, we have pre-cooked them. We'll add a little bit, we'll add that into here. And they are small and diced. But now we're gonna add the breadcrumbs in. So this is an Italian breadcrumb.
Yeah, Italian, you see them in the store, like the Progresso ones are great. You know, I use those for about everything, and they already come kind of seasoned with a blend of Italian spices and some, I think, some Romano and Parmesan cheese already mixed in there.
Yes, and we might have forgot one item in there because that was the Parmesan cheese was actually supposed to go into that.
Well, since we forgot it there,
both.
yeah, so we'll put a little bit, we can do a little
Layer
bit.
that one in.
Put a little bit on there, and then we'll go ahead and put some more on here so we're not missing out on any of that cheese.
Yep, grated Parmesan cheese in there, and then we also you can choose either to do fresh or dry thyme. We have the fresh, and so Jason had showed me a really easy way that you take the fresh off and then you just take it right and we go down.
Yeah, you just pull it right off the stem there, turn it the other way.
Oh!
Pull it so see how they're kind of facing up.
I
You
got
want to
it,
pull
I
it down on
got it, yes.
Yep, perfect.
It's like these little trees.
It's kind of the same way if you do fresh rosemary, you'll pull it right off the stem
So
like
the way
that.
that the
Yeah, pull it
direction
down
is.
on it, exactly. And if you have like a tiny bit of stem in there, it's not going to hurt anything. Believe me, nobody will be able to tell.
Okay.
All right. So basically what we're doing is we're kind of toasting the breadcrumbs in this stuffing a little bit to add a little bit more flavor to them, and also finish cooking the shallots that are in there. And also putting a little heat on the Parmesan cheese in there will also kind of caramelize that a little bit and adds a little extra depth of flavor to it. All right, so we have all of our ingredients in the topping there. Just toast it up nicely. We're gonna go ahead and cut our heat off there. And this is gonna go directly on top. You wanna try to, evenly distribute this topping over the green bean casserole.
That looks so good.
Yeah, it's looking good. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna put this in a 350-degree oven. Since the green beans are pretty much partially cooked and everything else in this is cooked, what you're really doing is kind of just finishing the green beans and also browning the topping the rest of the way.
Could you use panko breadcrumbs for this recipe?
You definitely could. You could use panko,
Okay.
but you may have to add a little extra seasoning since it doesn't have the seasoning that these Italian breadcrumbs have in it.
And panko is coarser, right?
Yeah,
Bigger.
it's almost like a Japanese style breadcrumb that's a coarser, has a little bit more crunch to it. And you can find that at any grocery store that you're gonna go to around here, or basically anywhere. So there's our green bean casserole ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna kind of pat that down to make sure that it's compact a little bit and spread out the topping. And I will put this in our handy oven that we got here on the side. And like I said, that'll probably take about 10 to 15 minutes or so in the oven to finish up. And while we have this in the oven, we're gonna start our second dish.
On the nutritional value for it, just to go over just a little bit so you'll know that difference between a typical green bean casserole and our lightened one. A typical an eighth of this recipe, which would be a large portion of a casserole dish, you'll see is 160 calories, and for a typical green bean casserole, it's gonna be 240 calories for even a smaller portion. And then the big difference in fat is 10 grams in a traditional and only 6 grams with ours, but the substantial difference is the sodium content, especially for those that are trying to really watch it for their blood pressure. Traditional, how much do you think is in a traditional for milligrams of sodium?
800 to 1,000.
You
maybe?
got it. Yep, traditional is anywhere from 800 mostly into the 900s milligrams. And what do you think this one is?
350.
Ooh, you're close. 280.
280.
So we took it substantially down again by doing the fresh ingredients. So it makes a huge difference.
That is a big difference, especially if you're on a low sodium diet, for sure.
Yep.
So the next dish that we're going to be doing, another traditional side item, we had some for Thanksgiving, and I know you said you have some family history of them in the
They
past.
love deviled eggs. Yes.
Yeah, that's usually 50-50. You either really love them or you don't like them at all. So I'm kind of on the love them side. So I'm excited about this. Which sometimes this is probably the most frustrating part about making deviled eggs is getting the shell off of them.
I know.
Even if they come off really easy, there's always a couple that sit there and they don't want to peel off or they break off, and it's okay. They all kind of taste the same. What I'll do is I usually start from each end and I kind of tap the egg, and you don't have to be super gentle with these. They are hard boiled, so you're not going to destroy the egg. So start from the top and the bottom, crack it, and then drop it on the cutting board. Use your hand to kind of roll it around a little bit. And this will kind of loosen up the shell on the outside.
That's for you.
take this one here and I'll put my shells. Let's take these eggs out of here. And I will put my shell back in this bowl so we don't make a mess on our cutting board here. Kind of sit nicely there on the board. You see how the eggs kind of started to separate a little bit. You got nice cracks all around. You want to find a good spot. Use your finger, you know, just kind of start from the top, pull it around.
Okay, yeah, mine are never like that. I mean, chunks of eggs are coming off. After this, I need to practice what you said.
Yeah, it's all really about practice. And whenever you're boiling eggs to be peeled afterwards, some tricks that I have, you know, I know you talked about putting some oil in the water. You said your brother does it,
yes.
And it does help. Things like putting a little baking soda in the water while you're boiling the eggs or adding some salt to the water. Since the shell's made of calcium, that baking soda and the salt help to kind of dissolve it a little bit as it's cooking, makes it a little weaker. And as they're completely cooled, it also helps make it easier to peel. So we have our nice peeled egg here.
I'm going to get this tongue out of here.
Okay.
There we go. Which that could probably add some.
I'm just going to set the peeled ones there, and I'm only going to do a couple, and then I'll show you the filling. So we have our eggs ready to go here. Get rid of my shells. And what we're going to do is this will be for our yolk filling and all that. So what we're going to stuff our deviled eggs with. So you can use any kind of kitchen spoon or something small to scoop the yolks out, or you can just use your fingers if you want to. Usually they'll just pop right out, so it's not a difficult process to get the yolks out. See, they're already waiting to fall out there. So as they come out, you just pop them right in the bowl there. You can kind of push from the outside and they'll drop right in there. You know, you can go back and get the leftovers there. You want to try to keep the shells in as good a condition as you can, because these are going to be the vessel for your filling here. And I'll just kind of set those up right there as I go. All right, so I got one more egg here, and then we will demonstrate to make a filling. Take that there. And that one kind of broke a little bit, but honestly, it's okay. If they break a little bit, you don't have to get rid of them, because they all kind of taste the same, either though they got a crack in them or not. It really doesn't matter. And I don't know if you can see the yolk or not, but the yolk is just done there. It's not overcooked, nice and bright yellow color. There's no graying or anything from overcooking or anything like that, and it's not undercooked, you know, because they're not mushy or anything. You can tell it's just finished. I know you guys can't really see it that great out there, but...
Oh, right over there, that camera.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you can show the beautiful. There it is.
You can see the bright yellow of your yolks is still there. So that's what we're looking for. Very good.
So next we're going to be adding the non-fat yogurt in there.
And let's add that a little bit at a time, just to make sure we don't make our filling too mushy.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And I think the recipe itself for a dozen eggs calls for, it's a half a cup.
Okay, so we only made in this round here, we have about 5 eggs, so it's about half of the recipe here. So we're gonna add our yogurt first, and we are gonna add mayonnaise to it, so I'll add maybe about, you know, a third of the yogurt to start with. All right.
We also are doing light mayonnaise. Again, we didn't go with fat-free. Fat-free sometimes, I mean, especially for multiple ingredients, you want to have some fat in there. So there's the light mayonnaise.
All right, yeah, and I mean, if you're gonna be healthy and you have to add a little bit of mayonnaise, you might as well use a nice, like, high-fat, good quality mayonnaise, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we have our...
Next comes the capers.
This adds a nice, like, briny, like, vinegar flavor to anything you're cooking. So this is a great substitute for regular pickle relish.
Yeah, that is definitely. I mean, just a different flavor to it. Okay, a little bit of salt in there, kosher salt, a little bit bigger granules on that one.
All right. So we got our filling ready.
It up.
You can use a whisk here. Some people will push this through a something that's called a tammy. It's kind of like a mesh strainer. They'll push it through to make sure that the egg yolks are really finely mashed up, but that's more of like in fancy restaurants.
Could you do that in a food processor?
You could definitely do it in a food processor. Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and process your eggs and add your topping to it, and that would mash it up really well. But this, if you use a really sturdy whisk, that'll do the same thing. So you just kind of take it and smash it so the yolks break up really well. Give it a little stir occasionally. You want to break the yolks up really well first.
And then the capers themselves were chopped up, is that right?
Yeah, so we pre-chopped those after they came out of the jar. That kind of helps add a little bit more flavor to it, and that way you don't have big caper berries that you're biting into. I mean, they taste okay, but you know, it kind of a little off-putting. So once you get the egg yolks mashed up, get in there with your whisk and really break it up and combine all those flavors and ingredients in there. And then looks like a nice consistency there.
Yeah, it's a pretty yellow.
Yeah, it looks good.
You want to show?
Yeah, so this is what the finished filling looks like here. You know, it's not too thin, and it's thick enough where you can put it in a piping bag like we're gonna do, and we're gonna fill our eggs afterwards. Now, you don't have to use a piping bag for this. You can just use a spoon, but I feel like the piping bag, you know, makes it look nicer. It looks fancy, you know, and you get to use a piping bag.
Like, could you use like if you did not have the tip, could you essentially use a plastic, like a storage bag and
Yeah, I mean, what I've done at home, you know, when I don't have something to pipe things out with, a Ziploc bag works really well. You just put your ingredients in the Ziploc bag, cut a hole in the very tip of it, you know, or like the lower corner of it, like you would have for a piping bag, and you just kind of pipe it out like you would with a piping bag, except you're using something that you have at home. All right, so let me get a spatula, and I will add this to our piping bag. Twist the top to make sure the ingredients are all the way to the bottom. You can kind of hold the tip up as you do it. Use one hand to hold the bag and the other hand to kind of guide it here. Put the tip directly on the bottom of the egg here and kind of pull up as you go. And then, there you go. Oh, I know. Here, I'll let you do the other ones.
All right.
Super easy.
Okay. Beautiful.
These are the filled deviled eggs. And we have a couple other ingredients that are kind of, you know, so what we're gonna do is just take a little paprika and we're gonna garnish the eggs like that. Sprinkle a little bit over top. You know, you don't have to go crazy with it. It's mainly for the color, a little bit of flavor in there. Use a nice paprika if you can get it. You know, they have that Hungarian smoked paprika that you find in the grocery store. That stuff's really good. Adds a nice flavor to it. And then you can either add these in the filling, or like we're gonna do today, we're just gonna take the green onions and put them right on top. There's another little layer of flavor here. You can just drop those right on there. And if they stick, they stick. If they don't, you know, they go on the side and it looks pretty.
That is.
Right? There you go. So we have our lightened up deviled eggs. I think they came out really good. I don't know if you guys can see that there. That's the finished product. And I think it's about time to check our green bean casserole, right?
Yep.
So our green bean casserole is out of the oven. The topping's nice and brown. You know, you see the cheese and the breadcrumbs toasted up really nice, and the sauce got really bubbly. It's kind of cooking up over the green beans. So that looks like any kind of green bean that you get at any of your family outings, right?
Yes.
You never know that it was lightened up.
Nope.
You know, so I mean, if you want to, you can add some kind of topping. If you got some chopped parsley or anything like that. I mean, I don't think I'm going to add anything else to it. I think it looks good like it is there. So I think this is a good way if you're looking to lighten up for the holidays or after the holidays. You know, try these recipes out. They're great. You can see they look just like the real thing there. You know, green bean casserole, it's not like the prettiest dish to present there, but to me, that looks pretty good to me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Well, we thank you so much for joining us for our holiday cooking demo here at the University of West Georgia. It's been a pleasure having you be a part of this again.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. I enjoy coming back. I really enjoy doing these cooking demos for you and everybody out there. So, you know, hopefully we get to do it sooner than later.
I know. We're hoping in the spring we'll have a couple more. Be on the lookout for those. And again, our UWG faculty and staff, if you will make sure to reach out to the Wolf Wellness Lab to subscribe to our awesome wellness letter that comes out. And if you'd like copies of the recipes, also send an email to them as well. That is in the chat too. So thank you. Happy holidays to everyone. Be safe, be healthy, but mostly be happy.